Hey everyone, Matt here with Reach Your Summit. Thanks for checking in. In this video, I'm going to go over 7 items that I've been using extensively, and I have over 500 miles with each piece of gear. So I just want to share my experience with you with these products and hopefully give you a little more insight into each. Now, before I start going over this gear, just a quick overview. I've personally been using a lot of this gear along the East Coast, the Appalachian Trail, parts of the North Country Trail out in Pennsylvania, in New England, Vermont, and the Long Trail, the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Whenever I come back from a shorter through hike or a weekend backpacking trip, I always clean my gear as soon as I get home. It might be a little bit of OCD, but I just like to maintain my gear, hopefully get the longest amount of life out of the product before I need to replace it. So let's get started. Number 1, the Black Diamond Carbon Z poles. These have been excellent. I have over 1,800 miles on these now. They work, set up some of my tents. They still collapse without any issues. I've had to replace the carbide tips at the bottom. That wasn't anything that was too big of an issue. I have lots of scrapes and scratches on these, but the foam does still have a good amount of life left to it. The straps are kind of worn out, and I personally don't use them too much. If I don't, then I just remove them. Total cost is around $170, I think. These poles have been awesome. They give me great stability, great support. I haven't had any major failures with them. I'm about 5'10", and these are 120 centimeters. They are fixed length. I don't find that to be too much of a problem because I don't really fuss with adjusting my poles when I'm hiking. And they weigh just about 9 ounces for the pair. So I've been very happy with these. And I look forward to seeing how much longer I can put these through the test before they shatter and I need to end up getting another pair. Next, Patagonia R1 Microgrid Fleece. Oh man, this has been my go-to for about 4 or 5 years now. I've had this, well over 500 miles. Still looks almost like new. It does have a little bit of the standard pilling that you get with any type of polyester fleece material over time, but it still performs very well. This is more one of my cold weather layers. I have used it in shoulder seasons, but once it gets above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I do start to get a little warm and sweat a little bit more with this. But I have used this on multiple trips, even just used this recently on my winter backpacking trip on the AT around Mount Greylock in North Adams, Massachusetts, and it works really well. I don't have any holes in it yet, and it's just been a great layer for the times that I've needed it. The total weight of this, I think it's around 12 ounces, and the total cost is $129. Now, I'm definitely a firm believer in you get what you pay for with a lot of outdoor gear, but I have been very surprised on a few occasions with some items that I found online or in stores that kind of piqued my interest, and I ended up purchasing it and testing it out, and they're still holding strong. So one of those items is this little product right here. This has blown my mind with how well it works and it's held up. This is the BRS 3000. This is a mostly titanium stove. I picked it up on Amazon for like $15 or $16. It weighs under an ounce, which is ridiculously light. And it works with any standard isobutane propane canister. For me personally, I'm not really cooking meals when I'm out. If I'm car camping at a national park or somewhere else, I'll use just a standard propane stove. If I'm out with groups and we are cooking a little bit more, I'll definitely bring something like the MSR wind burner, some type of other stove that's made for cooking. But in most cases, I just need to boil a little bit of water, and this stove has never failed me yet. Definitely have well over 500 miles with this stove. If you buy this stove, it does come with an additional O-ring. I actually haven't had to replace the O-ring yet, so I do have that as a backup when I need it. What I've been using it with, for the most part, has been just the Toaks 550 titanium pot. This is plenty for me to boil water and rehydrate my meals, and then this is a great size cup for having my coffee in the morning at camp. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how much more use I can get out of it before I end up having a problem. The Altra Lone Peak 4.0s. These shoes, I got over 500 miles in a pair of them, and they're excellent. I really love the comfort. For me personally, having that moderate cushion is just enough for me without getting too excessive, and I kind of lose some of that feeling on the terrain when I'm walking on it. Zero drop took me a little bit of getting used to, about 3 weeks, alternating between my other shoes, which were the La Sportiva Bushidos. Just super happy with these shoes. The toe shape, the quick drying, everything. The two minor issues that I had with these shoes was the insole and the midsole and the shoe did pack out after about 125 miles, but it wasn't anything that really bothered me too much, so it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker. The other thing I had a problem with was the front toe cap of these shoes kind of delaminating just from banging up against rocks. It's very difficult to avoid here in New England, especially if you're up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, where you're boulder hopping and scrambling everywhere. So these did delaminate a couple of times, so I just simply super glued them with shoe glue or crazy glue, and they held up for the rest of the life that I got out of them. And I liked these shoes so much that I ended up picking up a second pair. And I also just picked up the 4.5s, so I don't have a lot of use in those yet. It looks like Altra has addressed the toe cap from my first initial use with the shoe, and as we're transitioning now from winter to spring, I'm really looking forward to testing those out a little bit more. But if I find the shoe to be too tight around my foot because it is a little bit more snug, I do have another pair of these as a backup, just because I really love that slipper feel inside of the 4.0, and having the slightly wider midfoot for me where it felt a little more comfortable. The total weight of these is right around 21, 22 ounces for the pair, and these 4.0s, you might find them on sale online or in outdoor retailers for around like $50 or $60 now. Aside from that, I've been very happy with these shoes. Definitely become a standard go-to for me. So my next item is the Enlightened Equipment Revelation 20 Degree Quilt. This thing is awesome. I've been very, very comfortable in this, very happy. I've used this on multiple trips and through hikes, and it's still holding up. It still has its loft. I do wash it with the Nick Wax down wash when I get home. The one I have here is rated at 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it weighs about 21 ounces. It's 850 fill power down, and it does have the down tech to it, so it does have a hydrophobic treatment already. Clips, I actually haven't used the clips with the straps too much to wrap around the sleeping pad. I have on a few occasions, but I find that I just like having it slightly loose, and I'll tuck it around my body if I end up feeling a little too cold. This is the regular length, so it's 72 inches or 6 feet long, and it's wide. So it's going to be about 58 inches wide, I believe. And I also use this in my hammock, and it works really well also. Haven't had any major issues with this yet. On a rare occasion, I have had a little bit of condensation build up on the top of the fabric just because of my feet hitting the end of one of the tents I was testing out, or in my hammock if I'm using a winter barrier cover, might have a little bit of condensation there, and just when I accidentally brush it up against that winter barrier cover, it just collects on there. But in most cases, I haven't had any major issues with this yet. I've been super happy with it. The one thing that you do have to address when you're using the Revelation 20 though, or a zippered quilt like this, is even with pulling these cinch cords down really tight, I still get a small gap of space at the bottom of this. And you can feel a slight cold draft come through the bottom of the quilt. So to address that, I might take my down jacket, or I can take a pair of socks, and I could end up just stuffing that right at the bottom, right here after it's cinched down. That works fine for keeping the drafts out and giving me that little bit of extra warmth and keeping the heat trapped inside of the quilt. For this, I chose the charcoal gray on the inside and the blue shell on the outside, just because blue is one of my favorite colors. Depending on what you go with, I think this is around $280 if you start with customization, and it goes up in price from there with materials and fill power and temperature rating and everything that you go with. There's a bunch of different options on their website. Definitely recommend checking it out if you're in the market for a quilt. Definitely have over 500 miles with that quilt too. The other thing that I do to get a longer life out of this quilt, but if I'm on a through hike, I like to use a sleeping bag liner in most cases, just because this is a lot easier to clean in town at the laundromats. I don't have to worry about waiting for the down to dry or having to carry something around like a tennis ball or something, fluff that loft back out. And this helps keep some of the body oils from my body off of the nylon fabric with the quilt also. All right, this is the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Southwest 3400, or about 55 liters excluding the outer pockets. You can compress it down to right around where it is now, which is about 40 liters or 2,400 cubic inches. So there's a lot of versatility with this pack. This is made out of a 5 ounce per square yard Dyneema composite fabric, formerly known as Cuban fiber, and it's highly water resistant. The hip belt pockets, this is the updated version, so I can fit my iPhone 11 in there perfectly without any trouble. Both pockets are sealed with waterproof zippers. These pockets are excellent. I've shoved so many things in the outside here when I've needed to and still have some space left over. The pack is super durable. I haven't had anything inside of the pack get wet yet. I'm actually a big fan of Dyneema composite fabric and Cuban fiber. With my experience, this stuff has worked really well so far. Don't have any delaminating yet with this pack. Been very happy with the performance. Been very happy with the simplicity of the pack. That's something I always strive for on my backpacking trips, is keeping things simple and balanced. And this pack has helped me achieve that. I have well over 500 miles with this too. And I also used this on the trip, the winter trip on the AT, where it got down to -20. And that's when I started to feel the fabric felt like really crinkly and really stiff. But as soon as I got back home and let everything air out and cleaned everything out, it got right back to the form that it was in when I first got it. Yeah, I've been super happy with this pack. It weighs just around 2 pounds, a little over 2 pounds. And I've had 25 pounds in it. I never really exceed that. And the total cost for this pack is $365. Right, so my final piece of gear for this video specifically is another Hyperlite product made out of Dyneema composite fabric. This is the Dirigo 2 tent. I have way over 500 miles on this tent, and it's still holding up really well. Very lightweight. Weighs about 1 pound 10 ounces, 1 pound 11 ounces on my scale, I believe. Made fully out of Dyneema composite fabric, 5 different types of Dyneema actually. one which includes E-Vent, which is a waterproof, breathable material that I personally find to work really well. I've been very happy with it, although eventually, things will wet out. Nothing's truly 100% waterproof. But this tent has held up really well in heavy winds. It's worked really well in heavy downpours. I had this up in the White Mountains. I actually chose this as my shelter for the Allegheny 100 last year, about a couple of months before the event. I've used it many times on the AT. I've used it on the New England National Scenic Trail, and I even used it on the beach for a backpacking trip that I did at Sandy Neck over the late summer last year. And it still shows no signs of wear with it. The total cost of this tent is $795. If you're looking for a Dyneema composite fabric tent, I would strongly consider something like this. What I used with this tent, I didn't want to skimp on my tent stakes because I have had issues with trying to cut weight with those in the past, especially titanium stakes. And this is my shelter, so I want something to be very strong and be able to withstand the conditions. So I ended up picking up the Dirigo 2 Ultimate tent stakes. These are aluminum, and they're almost like your standard, it's like a circus tent or like a tarp stake. They have a hole in the top so you could thread cord through their guy line if you wanted to. These are about 8 inches long. This has given me enough support and structure along with the tent to withstand those conditions. And I have 8 of them for the tent. Been super happy with these stakes so far. So here's the Dyneema stuff sack that the tent comes in. The two minor gripes that I've had with this tent, one is the vestibule space. So the vestibule is a decent size. For me personally, with a small ultralight pack, I don't find it to be too problematic. The pyramid style shape is awesome too for me. On my own, being 5'10", but if I had someone else inside of the tent with me, it might feel a little more crammed. But when I'm using this tent on my own, that also reduces the likelihood of having my gear outside in the vestibule. The other thing that I would like to see updated a little bit with this tent, if possible, if they come out with another one, hey bud, is the breathability. So it's kind of tough, I understand, having some type of vents up at the top here with the carbon fiber strut, but this is a single wall tent. And so here in the Northeast, I have encountered a little bit of condensation inside of the tent. Not a lot where it's been major. The E-Vent panels definitely help if the condensation runs down the inner part of the tent and kind of breathes out through the bottom. But I have had a couple of times where I've had a little bit of droplets that have been on the fabric. Carbon fiber does not absorb water, so those drops just stay there. So what I've done is I just shook out the tent before I pack it up. It does help quite a bit with getting it to dry a little bit quicker. That condensation issue, you're gonna get that with any single wall tent. So, that's just something that I kind of had to accept when I went with this tent. I've had it with my Six Moon Designs Lunar Solo. I've had it with my Mountain Hardware Direct 2 tent. Condensation is just inevitable with a single wall tent. Heck, I've even had it with some of my double wall tents. Ambient humidity is just unavoidable here in the Northeast, so you're gonna get it no matter what time of year you're out. It will be a little bit drier in the winter time, but then you have all of your breath inside of the tent that's going to build up as well. So the other trick to that is I'll have a quick drying microfiber cloth or my buff, because I'm always wearing those, and I'll just kind of wipe any parts of the tent that have the condensation dry, or as dry as I can. And if I'm taking a break, I'll just lay it out and let it air dry. If it's going to be really nice out at night, I really love that I can just roll both of the doors up on each side and have it completely open with the mesh, enjoy the views, and enjoy the cool breeze blowing through the tent. Those are just minor gripes that I have. Overall, I've been very, very happy with this tent. The thicker Dyneema at the bottom of the tent, I love because I don't like having to use a footprint. It's just an extra piece of gear that I have to worry about. So I like that I can just set this tent up on, a reasonable camping surface and not have to worry about having major issues with it. I don't have any holes in this fabric yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting more use out of this. And I've been very, very happy with the Hyperlite products that I've used. So there you have it. Those are 7 items that I have over 500 miles with. Been very happy with them for the most part. Like I said, I did have a couple of minor gripes with a couple of things, but it is not knocking the products at all. I've been very happy with them. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing to this channel as I'm always adding new content. If you've used any of this gear, also please feel free to share your experiences with me and with everyone else in the comments below. Always interested in hearing your feedback with this gear also. I'm looking at putting together another video in the future going over some more items that I have over 500 miles with, so check back for that, along with a bunch of other videos that I'm looking forward to putting out within the next couple of months. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you on the trail.